So this video is going to focus on how to solve a problem that looks like this. So you can start by setting up your paper in this fashion. So creating a T-chart where the left side is a little bit smaller and the right side a little larger. And you can label the left side steps and the right side example, as well as write in this equation. You can pause the video if you'd like to be able to do that. So looking at this equation, one thing that I see is that there's a fraction in it. And fractions do sometimes complicate things. I love fractions, especially for baking, but it might be a little easier to not have a fraction here. So I'm going to show you a little trick to be able to remove that fraction from this problem. So the first thing that you're going to do is place all whole numbers over 1. So any whole number, in this case 10 and 52, whole numbers can also be written as over 1. The next thing you're going to do is multiply each term, these are called terms, by a number that will cancel out this denominator. So in this case, if I multiply everything by 3, or 3 over 1, this 3 will cancel out, and I'll show you. So let's multiply each term by 3 in this case, and you can put quotations around the 3 because depending on the problem you're doing, that number could change. So let's multiply each value by 3, or 3 over 1. So times 3 over 1, times 3 over 1, times 3 over 1. And this one you might have to squish in there a little bit. That's okay. So when we multiply 3 over 1 times 10 over 1, that's just like multiplying 3 times 10. So here we would have 30. When we multiply negative 2/3 times 3 over 1, this is where the magic happens. This is where the 3's cancel out. So you just have negative 2 times p, or minus 2p left. Minus 2p. There goes the fraction. Equals, and then we have our 52 over 1 times 3 over 1, which is just 52 times 3, which would be 156. Okay. Now this looks a lot better, right? We no longer have a fraction. It'll be a little easier to work with. Let's keep going. So number 3, when I'm solving an equation like this, my goal being to figure out what p equals, I like to draw a T-chart. And I'll show you what that looks like. So first of all, let's rewrite this equation down here. And then I'm going to draw a T-chart that goes right through the equal sign and then right over the equation. And on this T-chart, I'm going to decide that I want to get all of my p's over on this side and all of my constants over on this side. And eventually, all I want to have left is a p and a constant. And if you're not sure what a constant is just a number without a variable. So this chart reminds me, at the end, I just want to have a p over here and a constant, just a number, over here on the right. So let's start thinking about what we need to do to make that happen. This is where we use our inverse operations to isolate p. Okay. Now, inverse operations. Let's take a second and talk about that. Inverse operations are opposite operations. So create a little arrow that comes down here. The opposite of addition is subtraction. These are inverse operations. The opposite of division is multiplication. These are inverse operations. They undo one another, and that's helpful to know. So now let's look at our equation here. What is keeping p from being by itself? Well, on this side of the equation, there's a -2 connected to that p, and there's a 30. Now we're going to always deal with this guy first. We're going to leave the value that's attached to the variable. We're going to leave that till the very end. Okay, so positive 30, that's a constant. That should be over on the constant side. What is the inverse of a positive 30? Well, the inverse of a positive 30 would be a negative 30. So I'm going to subtract 30 minus 30 on both sides of the equation. This is going to cancel out the 30s, leaving you with negative 2p equals 156 minus 30, 126. Okay. All right, now what's keeping p from being by itself? Well, just the negative 2. So what we have here is negative 2 times p. Okay, so this is multiplication. What would undo multiplication? Division. So we are going to divide both sides by negative 2. And why? Well, when we divide by negative 2, these cancel out, and we're just left with p, which, that's what we wanted, right? That's what we decided at the beginning, is that we want to be just left with p. So we have p equals, now I know 126 divided by 2 is going to be 63, but I got to be really careful here. This is a positive 126 divided by a negative 2. What's a positive divided by a negative? It is a negative. So p equals negative 63. And that is your final answer.